Larry Goldberg is busier than me. I don't know how in the world I spend all day, Larry, from 5:30 in the morning,
Yeah.
most nights until 6-ish, 6:30 at night, and then sometimes even later than that, following all this news right now. I mean, because it's just nonstop. I mean, it's like a fire hose. But you've got other business and jobs
Yeah.
and things that you're doing.
I can't like you follow the news with that closely because I really don't get the time. Um, I have quite a lot going on, as you know.
Right?
Um, so so I do try and catch up. I've spent more time on X in the last couple of months than I've spent prior to that. But it's because it's very enticing, it's really nice to listen to some of the stuff that they have on now. I mean, X has become much richer,
Yeah.
and so I enjoy being there. I, you know, I'm a little disappointed that we don't have more people from, the other side of the political divide. I'd like to have a more robust conversation. I really appreciate, folks like Rohan Patel. I really appreciate him. I like people reminding me that there is another perspective, another point of view.
And to
Not,
do it and to do it without all of this,
yeah, yeah. We can agree to disagree.
we don't have to be calling people names or coming up with lies in order to make our points. It seems a little out of control right now.
Yeah, and also the other thing is that it's really interesting to get facts where your facts are wrong. Doesn't doesn't dismiss your perspective, but it certainly helps you understand the world.
Right.
Anyway, I enjoy being on X. I enjoy the cut and thrust, but right now, more than anything else, I'm enjoying this change of administration. I mean, we had become such a it's like looking at a company like General Electric or General Motors that have been around for 100 years, and these layers of incompetence, these layers of, you know, process sludge had built up.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing the stuff being cleaned out and cleaned out. I'm sure they'll make a few mistakes.
Bro.
No doubt that, I mean, I hope they make a few mistakes because if they don't, they haven't done enough. But man, this government needed it so badly. It's lost its zest. It's lost its life. It's become so incapable. I, it's incredible. I was preparing some stuff. We're going to meet tomorrow on employment Friday on Saturday.
You and I, yes, yes.
Yeah, and I was preparing for that. And it just seems that, and I looked at some employment reports, and what's interesting is that, there are employment reports that show government employment is at the peak of the peak, and it's going up faster than the rate of employment is going up in the general population.
Right.
We're at 23 something million people employed by government in this.
Governments, yes, not just the US government, but all the state, city, etc. Yeah. Mhm.
And this doesn't include consultants.
Right. Right. Yes, yes, yes.
So Elon was saying today on X that the average cost to the taxpayer of each person employed by the federal government is $1 million.
I saw that.
Because not only do we have the guy's salary and all the overhead attached to him and all the benefits and so on and so forth, we also have to allow for the consultant
Right.
that matches one, not one for one, but two
Maybe,
for
maybe,
one.
maybe more than one. Yeah, more than one for
No,
one.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there because the average government employee, if he hires a consultant, he hires a raft of consultants.
Yeah.
But not every government employee hires consultants. But on average, it's much more than 1 to 1.
Right. Yeah, we've been hearing like 10 to 1. Like there might be 20 million contractors.
So if you look at that Elon reckons it's $1 million per government employee. I mean, and it makes sense because there are how many 4 million employee if you include the military. Exclude the military, it's 2 million. I mean, we're definitely at a $4 trillion run rate or more.
Well, Elon and Trump today both said they are now going for a balanced budget. So
I mean, it looks possible because when you look at the money in general, you think there's no way we can get to a balanced budget. But given these numbers and given the kinds of stuff that's coming out, I mean, it is just, one of the things that I really think Trump should do is he should cancel, for convenience, every single government contract that can be canceled for convenience.
yeah.
Honestly, I think that would be the fastest route
Yeah.
to a balanced budget. Because I've contracted with the government on several occasions.
Me too.
One very large contract, and I can't discuss it, but I can tell you this, that it was for an extraordinarily large amount of money. It was a very big contract, but the contract starts out and under the Federal Acquisition Regulations. I think that's what FAR stands for. But under the FAR, which is 2 volumes of books this thick, or maybe even thick, maybe this thick. I've got a small hand. So these 2 volumes, thousands of pages, it starts off by saying every contract you have with the government is by the government's convenience.
Yeah.
So you contract under FAR, it can cancel you.
Yeah.
And I would say that we could probably cancel 75% of the contracts out there that are not military contracts. Military contracts are somewhat different. I would venture to say that we probably couldn't do that. But outside of the military, that would reduce the cost of government by a dramatic amount. Now, the whole question is from a legal point of view, does the president have to spend the money that Congress appropriates? It's, that's an open issue, and that probably should be fought out in the Supreme Court. So, anyway.
So the latest on that, just for fun, in case people don't haven't been
I
following,
don't know the latest on that.
The latest on that is that if the Democrats or the unions or however it turns out to be, do take the administrative branch to court over not spending all the money that's been appropriated, the rule that Trump is planning to use is that constitutionally he's required to do what's at the best interest of the country.
Yeah.
Not the right words, that's not the legal words, but it's like that. Constitutionally, top of the list, he has to do what he believes is the best interest of the country. And so he's going to say, if you've got a deficit that's going to bankrupt the country, I have to do this in the best interest of the country.
Yeah, I was going to raise that particular defense myself. I didn't know that that's what he had said, but I would have raised that same defense. I mean, we are in a crisis, and the president has incredibly wide powers in a crisis, incredibly wide. And, he's got a Supreme Court that will back him because the Supreme Court, I believe, will read the Constitution
Yes.
Very similarly, and given their track record, I think we can rely upon them to look at the country's best interests, and I think in the country's best interest, that would be the right interpretation. Look, Franklin Roosevelt also did some things, because of the urgency and the the situation of the situation. He also overstepped the mark, by the way. He tried to pack the Supreme Court, for example. I don't believe this president would do that. The Democrats,
Doesn't need to. It doesn't need
he
to.
doesn't need to, but the Democrats did talk about
Yes,
doing
he
that
did.
in
Yeah.
Biden's time.
Well, okay. So in the midst of all of this, what I called chaos, Larry, you may remember, weeks before the administration started, I said, it's going to be chaos. I had no idea. I said chaos. I didn't know it was going to be chaos. Anyway, but you know what? A lot of people are saying that the part of the whole strategy is to hit the other side with so much at once that they can't possibly address it. And so now you have everybody concentrating on the Department of Education, which is an important thing. We want to get rid of the Department of Education, but if they put all of their emphasis and all of their TV time and all of their legal fighting over to the Department of Education, then all the rest of it kind of just goes along. So it's kind of interesting to watch the strategy a little bit here. But
No,
go ahead, go ahead.
I mean, I'm having fun just watching it, but yeah, I love it. I
Okay.
love it.
So the markets don't seem to mind the chaos, Larry. Yes, the markets were down today because consumers said they were worried about reinflation. Consumers said they were worried about the tariffs. But Larry, I took a look here and see it turns out that the Dow is down just about 1% off its all-time high. The S&P is not even down 1% off its all-time high. Let's see. And that was after 2 years of 20% gains.
When was the all-time high?
A couple of just November, right? November, end of November. I looked at it. I think it was December 16th or December 14th, somewhere around there. Yeah.
It was after the election.
Right.
Yeah.
And the VIX, which of course measures fear in the market, is very near its kind of normal lows. 12% is kind of where it goes when there's no
That's
fear.
very, yeah.
But it's at 16.5 right now. But it's 12 is kind of the very
Oh,
low.
I thought you were saying it was at 12. It was
No,
yeah.
it went up a point today. It was at 15.5 yesterday. So the market, I don't think the markets are suggesting that they're terribly upset by all the chaos.
Look, there's a portion of the American population that are very unhappy right now, but it's a relatively small proportion because I think that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party is a relatively small, but they've been a very influential wing. They were definitely, Biden was part of their coalition. I'm not sure he was on the extreme left of the coalition, but he was part of the coalition. He certainly acted as if he were, and he let the country be run by them.
Right. The puppeteers, his puppeteers, the ones holding his strings, definitely took him in that way.
Right. I'm not sure I don't know whether I put it like that because I just don't know what the reality was. And there's no question that he was not minding the store. So maybe people were just acting on their own and acting without control. But whatever it was, whether it was the extreme of where they were actually pulling his strings or they were just acting without control, either way, or whatever the actual facts were, it appears that the country was being run by a fairly progressive group, far more progressive than the general population, and the election showed that.
Yes, yes.
And now this whole woke thing seems to be unwinding at a very rapid speed. So good. Yeah, I'm very happy.
All right. So Tesla, in the middle of all this, has been getting dragged down, along with the Mag 7 today, but it's holding right now above 360. But then I did a little further analysis, Larry, and we are still above a 50% retracement of the recent highs. So we had gone from 218 as the low. We went, not the low, but the last trough, up to 480. And so the 50% retracement would be 350. Now, I'm not a technical analyst by any stretch of the imagination, but I do believe in 50% retracements as being a very important thing as part of how the stock market works. What about you?
I'm not into technical
Not
analysis,
even that much, huh?
not even that much.
Okay.
I, you know, I just know that we're going to be in a quiet period for a while. It's going to be a tough quarter. Some people are projecting a very bad year. I'm not. I want to see it play out. Um, you know, there is just so much happening that is so good, and I'm so happy about it. And that's really what I'm focusing on. So, I don't look at the price of stock from day to day. It's not that critical to my portfolio, as you know. And so, from my perspective, I'm very comfortable with my position in Tesla. I do feel that I need to add to it at this point because I would like it to be. I think I'm going to go beyond my sort of my long-term,
Yeah. Yes.
conservative situation. I'm very bullish right now. I've been bullish for a while, but right now I realize that I may be too light and I may be prepared to take a higher risk. So I may be prepared to add on. But your technical analysis it may be right. It could be. You've been pretty spot on up to now. I wouldn't say spot on, but
Well,
directionally, you've been very accurate. And a lot of people are feeling quite bullish about the future. And so we're going to see Wall Street, the bears in Wall Street kind of saying, "Ah, we told you so, we told you so." Troy tells us that the numbers for this quarter are going to be under 400,000. They're going to have a three handle to them. That's fine. I mean, I'm quite prepared for it. Um, but I think next quarter is going to be, a real turning point. I mean, a real turning
a
point.
real turning point. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Let's talk about Uber, Waymo, Robotaxi, Ford. We're not gonna include China in today's discussion. I think it's a completely different and entirely, I mean, it's an important story, but I've covered it a couple of times this week. I'd rather talk
Yeah.
about what's really on everybody's mind right now, on X at least. Everybody's talking about this whole thing. I know you've been involved in the conversation. So it's interesting that Bill Ackman announces today, and I think he's a pretty good investor. He's done pretty well. I don't know.
He's made some mistakes, as have we all.
Right. But in general, I'd say he's one of the better investors out there. Well, he
He's
announced,
fantastic. No, he's a fantastic investor. But as I say, everybody's made some mistakes. Yeah.
well, right now, he announced today he's got $2 billion, 1.5% ownership of Uber. So let's say that I think that Bill Ackman, he knows Tesla very well, knows Elon very well, probably is,
Does he? I didn't know that there was a relationship between them.
I believe so. I could double check that, Larry, but I'm pretty sure that they do
Hmm.
have a relationship. Um,
I know that they've been very friendly on X. I just didn't know that there was a
with
investment relationship there.
I would have to triple check that. Um, but in any case, I'm just guessing that he has a fairly a better understanding than, let's say, the average person who goes on CNBC talking about Tesla and Robotaxi. That's just a guess. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's completely been swayed by the charisma of the current CEO because he did say very laudatory things about, I can't pronounce the guy's last name. Uh,
Dara. Call him
thank,
Dara.
okay. No, no, the other guy, Kawas,
Dara.
there's a very
Dara, Dara Karasovsky.
Oh, there,
Dara,
that. See, that's the one I was looking for. Yeah. All right.
Dara is his first name.
There's his first name. Okay, Dara. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he was very laudatory, extremely laudatory about him being a brilliant guy and that he's running an amazing store. So, but okay. So we've got the situation developing. Uber catbird seat. They've got the most rides. They've got the most cars. They got the most infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. We've got Waymo with the most autonomous rides and with a growing infrastructure and growing knowledge and Google behind them. We have got Ford, who's apparently thrown in the towel and said, okay, we know we can't do this. We're going to need help. And that it's probably between Waymo and Tesla to help them out. So how do you see it playing out? I didn't follow everything on X today. Do you see this as, um, you know, will there be any drivers 2 years from now, or will they all be autonomous? Will there be any
drivers, you mean in rideshare?
in rideshare?
No,
Will
no.
there be any competitors to Tesla in the United States, or will there be some kind of a
Well, Waymo is a competitor already, and they already have driverless cars out. So ipso facto, there will be other driverless cars out. Question is, how many competitors will there be? I don't imagine anybody getting there earlier than Tesla or anywhere being able to roll out as fast as Tesla. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. I mean, I personally think Tesla should go with licensing Uber. I I think that it would move faster, but Elon is Elon. He doesn't he's a good partner when he partners, but when he partners, he does it, all in. And I'm trying to remember who last he partnered with.
Yeah, right. Well, with all the what do you call it? Charging stations, the charging.
Yeah, he did partner with the charging stations, and I did predict that, and I was right.
Mhm.
And a lot of people did disagree with me. I think this is different, though. If you look at the charging stations really was all about, um, the objective, the mission. Here, this is not about the mission. This is about the business.
Mhm, mhm.
And, James Dowmer had a lot of impact on me when he said Tesla will want to control its relationship with its customers. That kind of gave me pause.
Mhm.
And then I saw Tesla brought out this app that can share, that allows a ride-hailing business to use the app, or
Right.
an owner to use the app for ride sharing, but not for the ownership aspect of it. And I kept thinking to myself, why would Tesla put out a patent like this? Why would they produce an app that separates the functions? Because after all, I, as an owner, would have no problem with Tesla, using my car for ride hailing and them knowing about my
Personal use.
ownership factors in the car, functions in the car. So the only reason they could do that is to have a third party, manage the ride hail aspect of it. So that indicated to me that they would at least entertain the possibility. Well, why would they entertain the possibility if not to work with a company like Uber? Because after all, who else is there?
Well,
I mean,
Waymo,
there's Lyft. No, 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 not Waymo.
not Waymo.
Waymo is a direct competitor.
But
Waymo, pardon?
what about Waymo just saying, fine, we'll start buying Tesla cars.
Yeah, that's possible.
I mean, if I'm Waymo and I've got a car that'll maybe go 150,000 miles. I've got a car that's costing me at least $50,000, but now I can turn around and get a car that goes 200,000 miles and cost me $25,000,
And much less to operate.
much less to operate, and I have a charging structure around it. It seems to me I just start buying Tesla cars.
Well, the reason Waymo would buy the car, I guess, is because their costs will go down considerably, both on the purchase of the car and the charging, because they don't have to use manual labor to charge it if they buy the Robotaxi. So that's possible.
Right.
I didn't think about that Good thought.
I'm
So,
all,
but
because yeah, go ahead.
Waymo control no market at all. Uber controls right now 80% of the market in the United States, or some very large percentage. I don't know the exact amount. So the Waymo thing is not really advantageous to Tesla, but the Uber thing is really advantageous to Tesla, in my view.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I
It would
think,
be a much faster rollout.
well, and a couple of various people have said Tesla doesn't want to be accused of having monopoly. They've already got issues with potential monopoly, downstream. So you don't want to put yourself out there as being monopolistic. Uh,
Yeah,
so there
that
would
may
be
be true.
now one of the other things that I came up with the other day that I don't know if anybody's talking about is that for all of these companies, I'm thinking they come to Elon. I don't think it's the other way around, and I believe that's already happened. So I mean, I believe that the conversations have already been had. I don't think that Uber. I think they would be outside of due diligence. I think, or not due diligence. I'm sorry. What's the word, Larry? I'm looking for their duty to their stockholders to not be in conversations with Tesla at this point. Maybe Waymo too,
Why?
because it's so obvious that Tesla is on the verge of having autonomy. And as you
But
just,
Uber, it's in their best interest to engage as soon as possible.
I'm saying I'm
And,
sorry, we're saying the same thing. You misunderstood. I either said it wrong or you misunderstood me.
oh, I see you were saying the negative. They
They
said
would have
better to them because it's their duty. I get it. I see what you're saying.
And I think maybe Waymo also, because it's too obvious about the difference between the products and how they could be just wiped out. So I think those conversations are going on. But one other little thing that to me adds into it is the charging stations themselves. And so now you have charging stations. Tesla controls it. What? Who knows what percentage? It's got to be 70, 80% of the charging posts in the United States. They're going to be able to take those same charging locations and add that cleaning unit into those charging locations. They're probably, since most of them are in Target parking lots or other kind of parking lots and multi-layer structure, multi-story structures, parking lots that don't have any use for those parking spaces at night. They've got uh, they can just incorporate the parking, the cleaning, and everything else into their existing infrastructure, and the other two have nothing even close to that.
I'd like to give that some thought because they're going to need staff, some staff. They're going to need a different charging mode. They're going to need, uh, um, and so the staff are going to have to be operational. They're going to have that equipment available. That equipment is very. I mean, those charging stations right now, are very vulnerable to being, people
That's,
coming and doing whatever and damaging and so on and so forth. So I don't think that's correct. I think they're going to have depots that are independent of the charging stations. That's my view.
yeah, I don't. The reason I've thought of this is because the main time you're going to want to charge these vehicles is going to be, midnight, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but they're still going to have to leave several charging posts open for people who do come up at night.
Well, in fact, if most of them are going to be this inductive charging, it's going to be kind of a separate kind of stall, or it may be able to be
Oh,
attached.
well, they don't have they don't have that kind of space in these
My point would be it might be able to be attached. It might be able to be part of the existing infrastructure in
I
in those
yeah,
because why not?
my own in my head, the amount of space needed for a depot. I mean, I've seen depots like at Mr. Green in Holland,
Mhm.
in Amsterdam or near Amsterdam. I mean, there's a lot of space taken up because the car cleaning is one thing, and you do need water supply to clean the car. the external car. So even if you've got a mechanical suction thing, you still need,
Right.
jets to, I mean, and then you need some service capacity because the cars may need to be dealt with. So to me, they would need some service installation of a significant nature that is custom made. I think having a few posts or having some space next to existing posts, I don't think it's the right thing. I don't, it just doesn't seem that it's going to be able to scale.
Yeah, the one of the reasons I again started thinking that way is because of the parking. So you might be able to park your cars on the street all night, find a place and just park it on the street when it's not being in use. And so not need a parking place, but that's not what Waymo's doing. Waymo is renting parking places and putting, dozens and dozens of cars in these parking places when they're not in use. So I'm imagining that Tesla could end up needing a lot of parking spaces, and these parking spaces are already there. There's nobody at Target at night. There's nobody at at these
Right.
facilities in the evening, and so they would have the
Well,
automatic ability.
having a mass amount of parking is a separate issue to the servicing of the vehicles. And I don't mean servicing from a mechanical point of
Right,
view.
right.
I mean servicing like cleaning, um, like, inspection. Uh, so every car should be inspected, relatively often. I guess they'll have some way of, there's no way right now of inspecting the car, and even if they have automatic cleaning and they've got this camera in the car, they still need inspection, you know.
Well, I don't know that we're going to finish this one, and I got more to talk to you about, Larry. So
Yeah.
I think it's I wanted to throw it out there. I see this as a
But
possibility.
for parking, I understand the parking idea, and to me, the service depot and the parking could be independent.
Right. But then there's the third issue, which is the charging up. And you've already got these charging infrastructures in place. So finding a way to double use them as opposed to starting over. Anyway, food for thought, more fun on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's good
Uh,
food for thought. Really interesting idea.
All right, so let's go on to subject number three, which will be completely outside. Well, not completely, but it's really, really fun, I think, and exciting to think about. And that is the surprise announcement this week by President Trump. It appears that he might have even surprised his secretary, who was sitting on the dais at the time, or near the dais at the time, that the United States is going to own Gaza.
I
So,
don't know about the United States owning Gaza, but he put on the table a unique and novel idea for Gaza, and that is to relocate all of the current Gaza residents, raise Gaza to the ground, and rebuild Gaza from scratch. And the residents either relocate to another city, another country, and settle there, or maybe come back, or maybe not. I think there's a lot there, but I mean, he brought down a lot of ire upon his head from a whole lot of people. But in classic Trump style, he's turned the conversation upside down and really opened people's thoughts and eyes. So, I don't necessarily agree with the idea or disagree with the idea for that matter. I'm just, I'm just amazed at the imagination of the man, of the creativity of the man.
now
I
I
think,
Yeah. Now, I assume that you are aware of a project or a proposal that had been made. I want to say it was 15 or 20 years ago. A consortium of countries with the United States involved, the Middle Eastern countries involved, European countries involved, multiple sovereign wealth funds involved, that had proposed that Gaza be turned into a city of the future. But while the residents were still there because the place was, not as bad a shape as it is now.
yeah, no, I'm very well aware of that. But, the real problem is it's a nationalist movement. You can change the buildings, it doesn't change the nationalist
Right.
movement. Yeah, I mean, you know, the Middle East has a long history of relocations. All the Jews
Right.
were expelled from all the Arab lands,
Right.
and they ended up, coming to Israel for the most part. Not all of them came to Israel, but for the most part, they came to Israel out of necessity because there was very little other options for them when they were expelled. I have a relative who was one of the expellees. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
so yeah, there's a long history of relocating people on both sides, by the way.
Both sides, absolutely. So let me lay out my little what I think they're saying. Now it's going to change a lot. He's meeting with Jordan on Tuesday, the King of Jordan on Tuesday, I believe it is.
Yeah, Hussein.
He's saying on Tuesday, and then I believe he's supposed to be also meeting with Turkey. I mean, not Turkey, Egypt next week as well. Uh, we've already heard a little bit from Saudi Arabia about this in a interview that he did. I think was it with Lex Friedman, or somebody did an interview with the Saudi Arabian the current leader there. Anyway, so we've heard a little bit from some folks.
I haven't heard the Saudi Arabian interview.
Yeah,
Was it with the king or was it with this big investor, the guy who's
the guy that runs, maybe the guy that runs the money. I'm not 100%.
yeah, yeah.
Might be the king. Anyway, let me just throw out what I think this is maybe moving towards and what you think about it from a standpoint of somebody who's Jewish and has family in Israel, as well as from the standpoint of an American who wants the best to happen for the region. So what I'm hearing and what I think is going to happen is everybody who currently that is not a terrorist, who's not a member of Hamas, and who's willing to denounce Hamas or however that would work, would be given an opportunity to leave the Gaza Strip. There would be some place for them to go today. Actually, Saudi Arabia was actually mentioned as a possible place for them to go, but Jordan, Jordan and Egypt, they got to pay attention to the President of the United States. So even though they're saying they wouldn't take anybody, but it's got to be something.
Jordan would not take anybody because Jordan has a terrible history.
I understand that, but just
No, Jordan allowed a large group, this is before Fatah.
yeah,
It was Fatah actually, but the PLO it was at
right,
that time.
right,
And the PLO tried to take over Jordan.
right.
And so Jordan, I mean, they attacked the PLO. They drove the PLO out of Jordan. I don't think Jordan's going to have them back.
Yeah. So wherever they go, let's say that that we find a place. Okay. It can't be junk. It can't be tents, and it's got to be
Yeah, all right. But
something decent. Okay, and a full right to return. You got a contract. Here's your contract. When we've got housing in Gaza, first in, first out, or whatever, you'll have a chance to come back. And
by the way, this applies to all the people who are not members of Hamas.
right.
So 12 people, 15 people you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. We'll say 100,000. Okay. I don't know. Who knows how many it is?
I think the entire population is so indoctrinated, they're so committed. Anyway,
Anyway, so this would be, so we're guessing that I'm going to guess that this would take a minimum of 3 years before anybody would be coming back. And in the meantime, if they are close enough, they're in Egypt or they're in Jordan, if they're close enough, many of them would be coming back and working on the actual construction. So they would have ownership in this new city. They would get the benefit of feeling as if they're part of building this great new city. I believe that would be funded. I believe that there would be businesses that would be part of the funding. I believe there would be sovereign wealth funds, all kinds
but
of.
who would be permitted to buy into this new city?
Buy-in meaning other than the Palestinians?
Other than the current residents of Gaza?
Well, I suppose whoever's willing to pay the price, there'll be, it's going to be, I assume, be a capitalistic, democratic, space, and people would, bid for the right.
Why would people be required to leave in the first place?
Not required, invited to leave. Now, if you want to stay, you can. It's not going to be pleasant. You're not going to have any place to, how are you going to build anything? So you're going to have some kind of an offer to come back, and it would have to be a good offer. It would have to be offering some kind of residence when you come back. Maybe it's even ownership for those who do come back, or who work on it, who are participating.
I mean, it's a great idea, but if you have ever been to Gaza,
if not,
you'll find that there will be no takers. I mean,
okay.
The Gazans are not really. I mean, they are very committed Hamas by and large, and there are people even to the right of Hamas. Hamas is not the only political group, and there are political groups that are far worse than Hamas, believe it or not. But I don't think many Gazans would entertain this. I think they were very opposed to it. I think that's going to be the underlying problem. This is not going to be an easy problem to solve.
So you need to have a bunch of salesmen go in there, huh? And sell them on moving out.
They may go in there. I don't think they'll get out.
So one of the things
I mean, I'm a realist. I've spent a lot of time in Israel. I was part of an Israeli company for a while, so I have I'm very experienced in the area, and these hatreds run very deep.
I certainly understand that. So somebody the other day on X was really inflamed and was talking. It might have even been Mark Cuban. I can't remember, but it was somebody of note who was like, "This is impossible. There's no way. Blah blah blah. What are you talking?" And I said, "Okay, what's your idea?" And so one of the things about the Trump idea, you said it in the beginning, is that it's novel. It has created a lot of people.
Change the conversation.
Right. So I'm having a hard time, and you're inventive, I'm inventive. I'm having a hard time figuring out what does work other than something like this in order to pacify is the wrong word, in order to make.
What is the political structure at the end of this? You focused on building, but
Yeah.
What is the political structure? Who runs that place? What country does that place belong to? That's the central issue,
Right.
not the rebuilding of it. And if it's rebuilt with fancy hotels and so on and so forth, what happens to the people that are there right now? A lot of practical. I mean, I love that he's opened this conversation up and changed the conversation. I love that. I mean, the complexity of it is not to be underestimated.
Yeah, I have always thought that the idea for this, for rebuilding the city from the ground up, was that there would be possibly three countries, that the United States might own it for the next 5 years or something, but then there would be three countries that would be responsible for managing it, let's say for another decade. And then if those three countries said, look, it looks looking good to us, let's turn this into Palestine.com, then great.
There are 1.4 million or something Gazans who would oppose that. And it's going to be very difficult to impose that settlement upon them in the United Nations, in world opinion, and given. But, who knows? I mean, it would be great to think that we could have an election and people could vote. And if there was enough, if there were enough future offered them, if there were enough opportunity offered them,
Right.
they may change their view. particularly if they didn't have Hamas pointing guns at them.
Right. Right.
So right now there is so, but don't underestimate the deep
Yes.
acculturation that already exists amongst those people. And there's a very deep hatred of Israel, and it's extremely difficult to overcome that.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I think what a lot of it may come down to, in fact, would be the other Arab countries being there kind of coaching them along. So if the Saudis and the Jordanians and the Egyptians, were all saying this seems to be a path that makes sense, it's an opportunity. We're not sure what the alternatives are. It might be that obviously I would say they would have a lot more influence on the decision. They would be better salesmen for it than say
Yeah,
Trump.
I don't think they're going to be on the side of on. Look, you may get one or two of them, certainly some of the more, middle of the road guys, but the Qataris, even the Saudis, I think they would find it very, very difficult, if at all, to side with that kind of plan. But we'll see. I mean, Trump is an amazing guy. He's a conjurer. Let's see what he can conjure up here.
And
You may be right.
he says, I'm a real estate guy. He says, I know about this kind of stuff. He's so funny. I mean, I've never, maybe I said this to you, Larry, on Tuesday, but I consider him to be a deal maker. I consider him to be a salesman, a builder for sure. I never, ever thought he was this creative. This was
It was very creative. It was
new
very
side,
creative.
a new side.
Certainly broke the conversation wide open.
Broke it wide open. All right. So we have, let's just fall back just for another couple of minutes on the first quarter. You brought that up a little while ago. Does it matter?
No, I don't think the first or second quarter matters in terms of deliveries. I think that all that matters is the rate of ramp of the lower cost car and the rate at which they're able to actually roll it out and bring it to profitability. The continued ramp of the Cybertruck. And the other issue is the battery supply that they alluded to. I think the battery supply that they alluded to is the supply for the new lower cost car. I think that's the biggest issue they've got. I mean, I listened to Jordan Giesecke. You should
I
listen.
did as well. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so that's probably the issue. So they have to overcome that. And time will tell. The ramp of that car is critical to this year's financials, which I know Wall Street are all concerned about. So that ties into what you're talking about in terms of the price of the shares, the price of the shares. But and which Elon turns up at the quarterly meetings, So I think that's what counts much more than this quarter's numbers, which, I think are not going to be great.
So I was having a back and forth with Gary a little while ago, Gary Black, and I have a lot of respect for Gary. But I said to him at the end, and he didn't ever get back to me after I said this. That doesn't mean he's capitulating. Maybe he just didn't have time. But I said to him, it is impossible for all the rest of the things that we talk and say about Wall Street, and we mock them and talk about how little they know, et cetera, et cetera. For all of that, it is impossible for me to contemplate that the robot part, the Optimus itself, forget Robotaxi, that Optimus itself, being this far along in development, with the largest TAM maybe by 5x, maybe by 10x of any product in the history of the world, and pretty easy. I mean, you don't have to be that brilliant to be able to imagine that the TAM is enormous if you're replacing labor, that the street has claims, or that the claim is that the street is putting no value on
Well, they are. I mean, it's quite clear they're not. I mean, you just have to look at the price of the stock. It's quite clear that they're not. And Gary himself has written very, very dismissively about the robot. He said, there are only 500,000 being sold right now. So at most, they could sell another 500,000. And they currently priced at about, $50,000. And he thinks they'll sell for about $20,000. I mean, it's like, Gary, what land are you, in possession of? I mean, this guy lives on a remote island in the middle of the, South Pacific. It's crazy. And I don't think Wall Street are, they have to see real sales of real robots. But venture capitalists are putting huge amounts of money into robots. Companies are investing billions into, getting their bots ready for the market. It's quite clearly the moment has come because the software is now showing that it can do this, and it was never possible before. And so it's only a matter of time, and it's not a very long period of time. But, Wall Street won't do it, and Gary won't do it. So it's in our favor. As long as they keep dismissing it for another year or so, we can keep acquiring.
I saw an interesting article the other day, Larry. Of course, it appealed to me because I do the small business side of things. And it was saying that the small business people might get this before the big business people do. Because there was one guy who owns it was Scobel's brother-in-law or his brother or something. Robert said he owns two bars, and he would buy 7 right now for the 2 bars. This is not even a manufacturing place. And then another person popped in and said that they had a manufacturing business and they would buy 100 right now. Maybe the small business owner, maybe that's where I'm seeing it so much more clearly, is
Yeah.
the actual immediate applications.
Yeah, but the immediate cost is going to be very high.
Yeah, but it could be.
So I think, I don't know what bartenders are paid. I'd have to look into that. And they would have to be paid, in the range of $50 an hour
Yeah.
to merit,
Would be. They would
this.
be, Larry.
Pardon?
Bartenders would be being paid 50. But he wasn't just talking bartenders. He was talking about bringing the stuff in off the trucks, all the kinds of things that you have to have done. But he was saying he would pay 100,000, no question. And in my small business, where I was talking about $20 an hour people, I would have paid $100,000. No, I would have written the check so fast it made your head spin.
But remember, $100,000 may be too low.
Well, it might be, but I'm just saying at a point.
When I did my study, I mean, and what I've looked at in the marketplace, it looks like those first bots are going to be a couple of $100,000, $250,000 in the first instance.
Right.
And so we're about a year or two, maybe 2 years away from volume production, really large volume production.
Right.
That'll bring the price down below $50,000 and towards the $20,000. But you may be right. I mean, there could be some very high value. Bartending seems to be an ideal solution. Unfortunately, you can't have the repartee with well, maybe you could.
Maybe you can. Maybe it'll be better.
Right.
Say, I want the personality right now to be a gruff person. No. I want a droll sense of humor.
Yeah.
And it could be and it could remember you, right? They're adding memory now.
Absolutely.
So the bartender could remember you and know that you want a droll sense of humor.
Yeah, I think for memory and for local compute, they're probably going to have a computer on site communicating with the bartender so that you could have, unlimited amount of memory and so on and so forth. Look, it could work. I mean, it occurs to me that it may be worthwhile having the bartender behind the wall running the robot, even before the robot has learned how to do the job.
Well, Larry, I want to end with this tonight. I had one of my commenters on X the other day. He says, "You and Larry don't agree." And so I told him, I said, well, if you have relationships with people that always agree with you, one of you is redundant.
Well, I should report that my contract with you requires me to disagree with everything you say.
Because you don't want to be redundant.
I mean, I'll be unemployed.
That's right. All right, Larry, we'll see you tomorrow. Let's go ahead and we will, what do you call it? Tease the show tomorrow. We will be on, I'm guessing probably in the afternoon sometime when it's released. We'll be talking about Cathie Wood. Cathie Wood puts out her monthly report Friday night, Saturday mornings, where she talks about what happened in everything in the economy, basically. So you and I have a great time doing it, and we usually get very good results in terms of people watching it, Larry.
Good. Good.
So
You think we're stealing money out of Cathie's pocket?
I think we should be putting money back into her pocket because
Yeah,
people
I
then
think
go,
I think we
maybe I should
market.
take the original,
Yeah, should I ask her to pay us for marketing?
That's exactly right.
All right.
100%. Okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow. And to all of you out
Thanks.
there, it's been great talking to you.